23 years. Do you really think that's enough for someone to be giving life advice? Well, let's find out. Here's my 23 life lessons from a 23-year-old. Okay, this first category is self-discovery and growth. And the first lesson in this category is to question everything. Now, this is a very basic one. Question things, ask why more often. And one of the things I think people could do is they can actually read about philosophy, and they can start learning more about philosophical ideas, logic within philosophy, and just reading more and questioning people instead of just blindly following something that you have your whole life maybe. Ask the question, why? You don't just find yourself, you build yourself. And what I mean by this is you continuously try things throughout your life, whether it's a new job or a different hobby, you date somebody new, read a different type of book, whatever it is, you try something new and you learn about yourself by not only the failures, but also everything in between. The failures are the most important part, but everything else in between also teaches you something that you will learn about yourself. Comparison is truly the thief of joy. I think most people have heard this quote before, but I don't think many people actually live by it. And I don't mean comparison in a way of like looking down on people. We shouldn't compare at all because it just leads to jealousy and envy. And here's actually a quote from Naval Ravikant. Do you want to actually be that person with all of their reactions, their desires, their family, their happiness level, their outlook on life, and their self-image? If you're not willing to do a wholesome 24/7, 100% swap with who that person is, then there's no point in being jealous. Once I came to that realization, jealousy faded away because I don't want to be anybody else. So there's really no reason to do it. It just makes you feel worse about yourself. Even if you think it's boosting your ego and making you feel better, eventually it will bite you in the ass. Indecision is not a vantage point from which you can assess your options. I found this from a YouTuber named Struthless right here, and I will actually put a clip from
a path. Any path, even if it's the wrong path, will lead you so much faster to a more correct path than doing nothing. Put another way, indecision is not a vantage point from which you can assess your options. It's just another option on your list. See, right there. There it is. Doing nothing is a choice, just like cooking, painting, or making sock puppets. However, unlike literally every other option on your list, it is the only option that will not move you forward.
So what this lesson means is that you cannot sit and ponder over what decision you want to make. You just have to make a decision, otherwise you're going to continuously procrastinate that decision and you're just going to go in the same cycle. So you need to make a decision, otherwise not making a decision is a decision which you're going to regret. So just choose something. And I know this can be hard, and it also seems like a lot of options seems like the best option, but it's really not. Like narrowing down your options, it's really hard, but it is the best way to go about everything in life, really. And then once you get that positive feedback loop going, it's rolling, the ball rolling, you will start to see things in a more clear light, which seems counterintuitive, sort of, but it makes sense once you start doing it. Failure is very important. I mentioned this earlier about how failing is you'll learn valuable lessons from it. And I know this firsthand, I'm sure everybody does. It's just whether you can recognize that you actually have learned something from your failures. You have to take the failure and look at it from like a scientific perspective sort of thing. Be like, what happened? What did I learn? And what can I gather from this to utilize next time? So fail often because it will give you information about yourself, about others around you, and just about your life in general that you will not gain from any success. Speaking of success, this next category is actually career and success. The first lesson in this category is bet on your strengths, not your weaknesses. And this is by Gary Vee.
You need to bet on your strengths and don't give a fuck about what you suck at. Way too many people in this room are gonna spend the next 30, 40 years of their lives trying to check the boxes of the things that they're not as good at, and that you're gonna waste a load of time and lose.
When you think about it, it really makes no sense to try to build anything based on your weaknesses. Why not just focus on your strengths and double down on those? So I think everybody should just focus on their strengths and not their weaknesses. Of course, some weaknesses you should try to at least build up to a little baseline, I guess you could say. You don't want to be terrible at something that you should be at least decent at. Maybe like, I don't know, math. You should be able to add and subtract. But other than that, you should not have to focus on being a super smart freaking Albert Einstein if you're bad at math. Just focus on your strengths. Don't chase the money, chase the skills. And this is by Naval Ravikant. So what Naval is saying here is don't chase like the short-term money. You should focus on building assets. Maybe it's purchasing real estate and owning intellectual property, like maybe program something, something where you have ownership. That's what he means. To me, I would take it a step further and also not focus on short-term money, like I said, but let's say you're in a dead-end job and you're just working, but you know that job is pointless. It's a dead-end job. You're just doing it for the money. Why not try to put your energy, some of it, into something else that you can try to get out of that dead-end job, right? So stop chasing all the money because you know that the money is a dead end right there in that job. So you need to shift some of your attention. So stop chasing all that money. Chase the skills. This next one I've heard somewhere, kind of, I think, but I titled it, Get Rid of As Much Noise As You Can. And by this I mean, focus on what you want to focus on, and everything else that's external. Let's say there's some negative people around you. Maybe it could even be family members that are negative, but most of the time it'll be friends or whatever, maybe coworkers. Cut them out as much as you can. You might not be able to cut somebody completely out of your life, but you might be able to say, hey, like I'm gonna spend time with this person once a month because they're negative in my life and they're bringing me down. So just cut out as much of the noise as you can and just become a sniper. This one's probably one of my personal favorites. Beware of the golden handcuffs, right? This is where you start buying a bunch of stuff. Let's say you get a promotion and you're like, oh, I have all this extra cash. Let's buy a new car. Well, now you have that extra monthly payment, assuming it's not the same price as your previous monthly payment. And you keep doing this. And this is why people that make $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck, because they have the golden handcuffs on themselves. So don't do that. Next lesson is to invest in yourself. This comes in many forms. The first form that I can think of is by reading things like this, The Slight Edge. This book is about compounding habits. So whether you have a good habit or a bad habit, they will compound regardless. Anyways, but that's The Slight Edge. Another one is Atomic Habits. This one's just about habits. How do they form? How to keep habits, how to build new ones, how to get rid of bad ones. So just reading books like that is a really good way to invest in yourself. I mean, and then learning skills that you're into, whether it's photography, videography, maybe you're into acting or writing or whatever it is. Investing in yourself to learn those skills and develop it. So invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to suck at something now. This is something that I found from Mark Cuban. I'm sure other people have said it, but basically when you start something that you're new at and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to suck. So just admit that and get past that suck phase, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, because everyone's going to suck in that phase. So you got to get through it. And I've got another category. This is the third category. This is relationships and social life. I couldn't remember what it was. Relationships and social life. And the first category we've got here is your environment shapes you more than you think. And this is not just your physical environment. This is also your mental environment as well. But with physical, your place that you stay, live, spend a lot of time in, and then obviously the people around you, family, friends, anybody else that you surround yourself with, and then your mental state. If you're always in a bad mental state, that does not help your life at all. So whether you have to go to therapy to get through that or meditate or whatever you have to do, do it. Okay, so listen more than you speak. This is something that we're taught at a young age, I believe. At least I heard this. You're supposed to listen, twice as much as you speak. I don't think most people do that. I think a lot of people just run their mouth and always try to get their word out, which it can feel good to do that, but at the same time, if you listen to somebody, even if their opinion is different than yours, you'll learn something, especially if their opinion is different than yours, I should say. But if someone has the same opinion as you, they still might have a different perspective than you. You don't know. So listen a lot, and you'll gather information, you'll learn new stuff. You can learn something from everyone, but not everyone is worth listening to. This one, it's more like a take everyone's word with a grain of salt type of approach. So some people, they might tell you one thing, but like, let's say you have this ideal life in mind or this ideal goal, and somebody's telling you otherwise, like, no, that's not gonna work, this, whatever it is. Take what they're saying with a grain of salt. Even if they're maybe coming from a practical approach, they still might be just kind of feeding you information that's gonna ruin your progress towards whatever it is. So just take everything with a grain of salt. I mean, that's what it is. Stop worrying about what people think. Here's a clip.
People shit on you and doubt you. I am tired of people not starting and living their life on one very simple thing, which is they're worried about what other people think, whether that's their mom, their friends, and worst of all, fucking comments in social media. I mean, this is some 6th grade lunchroom shit. Are you really not gonna live your life based on somebody's anonymous fucking icon feedback that you suck? They fucking suck. They're straight fucking trash. That's why I fucking found a dumpster.
Obviously, this can be really hard for most people, or maybe I shouldn't say most people, a lot of people, especially if you have anxiety. It's just something you have to get over, because if you want to do something that's kind of against the grain, you know, just go to college, get a job, do the traditional path, whatever that may be, you're probably going to have to do things that people are going to judge you for, and you have to be able to figure out how to navigate that. So that one, it's a tough one. It's brutal, but all of life is brutal. It's hard. It's not fair. So, and finally, the last category, life perspectives. This first lesson in this category is probably the hardest thing, and this is just tough for me even, but you can't control everything, and there are just certain things in life that you don't know, like how much luck is actually involved. You literally cannot. It's not a variable that can be measured. So you just have to recognize, well, I can eat healthy, I can not waste my time scrolling social media, I can do these things to improve myself, but some things are out of your control, whether you get a job or not. Probably out of your control when there's thousands of applicants, you know, like the odds are not necessarily in your favor. A lot of that has to do with luck that you just cannot control. So you have to recognize that. Everything compounds over time, the good and the bad. Let's take investing, for example. You could either choose not to invest, which is a bad choice, I would say. And if you don't invest at all, then when retirement comes, you know, are you going to be able to retire? I don't know if savings will be able to really save you for that. But if you choose to to invest at a young age, that's going to compound over time. That's just one example. But everything in life, your health, your mindset, your mental health, people forget about your mental health. I mean, they only think about your physical health or your bank account, but like mental health is very important. So everything compounds over time, the good and the bad. The myth of the dream job. This is coming from a place where I've never had a dream job. I've never gotten a job where I thought, well, no, that's kind of a lie. I got my real estate license and I thought that was going to be kind of my dream job. And I realized that, you know, the destination is not the end all be all. And so there's this arrival fallacy where it's like you have all these problems and you think that arriving at this destination is going to solve those problems that you currently have, but that's not true. So you just have to recognize that the process is really the most important thing. And actually I have a point for that later on. Did I say I have a point for that later on? Actually, that's right now. Enjoy the process, not the outcome. Like I said, the end goal is not the thing that's ultimately going to just solve your problems, whether you're sad, depressed, or angry or whatever. That end goal, you know, maybe there may be some things that it solves, especially if it's like related to money. If you're going from a job where you're not making a lot of money to a job where you're making a lot of money, of course there's going to be some
a few moments later,
like relief. That's what I was looking for. Relief. But the destination is not the ultimate goal, it's the process. This one might sound a little weird, but quit often. I know, right? Quit often. Who wants to quit? No one wants to be a quitter, but actually the people that start things and they quit the things that they know they're not good at, they don't want to continue doing, especially those two combinations. If you're not good at something and you don't want to continue doing it, why are you doing it? pivot, do something else, try something new.
Quit.
Be careful of the behind the scenes trap. What I mean by this is you see everybody's highlight reels on social media. Everyone's doing all this cool shit while you're just having this like normal life, but you don't know what those people are actually going through. They could be going through like major depression, or maybe their family member just died, or maybe they have a mental, some sort of mental thing going on, or, you know, it doesn't even matter. Anything could be possible, but you're only looking at people's highlight reels. So don't fall into the trap and believe that these people have a better life than you, because the truth is everybody has some sort of shit that is going on. You just don't see it because everyone wants to put their highlight reel out. So do not fall into the trap of this. And finally, the last two right now. So the first one of the last two is you don't have to have it all figured out right now. This is a hard thing to do. And I ultimately sum it up to living in the moment, because like myself, I'm always trying to live in the future. I'm trying to think of like, what's my next move? What's my college degree gonna do for me? Yada, yada, yada. But living in the present is the ultimate, like being mindful. It is so much better than the anxiety and the stress, and it just makes life so much harder. So being able to acknowledge that maybe you're in a liminal space right now and you're just kind of, you don't know the direction of your life, which is perfectly fine. Just accept that, stay curious, explore, learn new things, and keep going. And finally, this last lesson is my favorite one. It's by Gary Vee. It's
How you make your money is more important than how much you make.
I love this because it's so many people try to chase money. They forget that that's not the end goal, because realistically you're gonna die, and you worked so hard for all that money. But if you just did something that you really didn't give a shit about, all for the money, was it really worth it? And honestly, you have to answer that for yourself. If you say that yes, the money's worth it, that's on you. That's your choice, it's your life. But I think for most people, they would rather choose a different option, a different path. They would rather choose something that they at least somewhat enjoy doing, instead of just trying to chase money that ultimately is never going to be enough. Because, I mean, look at the richest people in the world. They're still trying to get more money, even though they're way richer than any of us ever will be. So how you make your money is more important than how much you make. So by the end of this video, I hope that you learned something, you heard a new quote, or, you know, maybe you just got a different perspective on something that you hadn't heard before or thought about before. I by no means am perfect. I'm not really capable, like I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I know everything. I mean, I'm only 23, but these are some things that I've heard, read, and tried to practice in my own life and want to live my life by, because they're important to me. And hopefully that you got some meaning from these two.